Hello and welcome back to Count Her In. I'm super excited for today's episode. I know I say this about all of our episodes, but specifically this one because we're turning the tables. We're asking Ali all of the questions to get to know her a little bit better, really unpack her entrepreneurial journey, and just, talk to our favorite co-host. So at the beginning of every podcast, as you guys might know, we always introduce our podcast guest, but I thought it'd be fun to have Ali introduce herself and introduce all of the different hats that she wears.
Oh my goodness. Well, thank you so much for having me on. It's an absolute pleasure. I've been wanting to come onto this podcast for so long.
We're excited to have you.
Okay. I like how you said the different hats because there's definitely different ways I introduce myself with different people.
Yes.
Around different audiences, around different environments. I'll give you my, let's say I meet someone in Shanghai introduction, which is like the thing I'm most accustomed to at this point right now. I've got hi, I'm Ali. I was born and brought up in Hong Kong. My parents are originally from Canada. I went to an American international school all the way up, always very interested in economics and data and entrepreneurial endeavors and entrepreneurship. I love traveling. I've always really loved being active and being with friends and very outgoing and traveling and soccer and that sort of thing. In the later half of my high school career, I started to do a lot of internships and was really drawn to the entrepreneurial world of startups. But my senior year of high school, we were first hit by the Hong Kong protests and then COVID, which forced me in January to go 1 week to Miami with my sister for Chinese New Year, but then lasted 2 months. And then we were in Canada for 2 months afterwards. During this time, I was very disconnected from the world and I really wanted to be around people. So I started my first startup called Lite, which was a virtual event platform that connected over 30,000 Gen Zs, events, all sorts of events, everything from Chinese speaking practice, political conversations, yoga classes, anime, K-pop, whatever your heart desired. Came back to Hong Kong, was ready, graduated, which was crazy in person. And then in November of 2020, I came to Shanghai finally to start my university career at NYU Shanghai and studying data science and economics here. And while I've been here, I've been able to just start a bunch of different cool initiatives, everything the Entrepreneurs Network with Weilyn. Here we are at the Entrepreneurs in Action, which is like a community of events for founders and the Why Wait Collective. Mostly though, if I had to introduce myself on the more personal level, I'm definitely someone who's excited to be up every day. And I'm just curious. I'm a very curious person. I like to learn. I like to talk to people. I'm a huge conversationalist. And I think a lot, overthink a lot. Definitely. That's something I think too much. I think too much.
I love that introduction. I think we covered a lot of things that we're going to unpack a little bit more on this podcast, but I want to try something new. So you gave us our little rundown of who you are from your perspective. I want you to do it from your sister's perspective. What do you think if Nicole had to introduce you? How do you think she would introduce you?
First of all, I love the question. I love the creativity. Weilyn and I are such fanatics about just being sisters. We're both two sisters and we just think it's the best thing in the world, and we're both very close and just close with our sisters. So love this question. I'm trying to think. So my sister, for context, she is 17 in 2 weeks in Hong Kong. She's very artistic, architectural, outgoing, spunky. She's someone that can have a conversation with any person. She's a very, very welcoming, happy person, just someone who you objectively can't not like. She's a very likable person, and is very agreeable, just fantastic empath. I'm a huge fan. We love Nicole.
We love Nicole.
And if I were to have her describe, I think I've always been just very energetic. She'd see me growing up very energetic, lots of things going on, and definitely rambunctious, got around, always very outspoken, and always liked to do different activities and wanted to try new things. And she saw me in middle school grow and hang out with friends, is including her. We fought a lot when we were younger, just like casually, but then we'd love each other. Then we had an age like in like our teens, we're like, we're not gonna fight, like we're just like our best friends, like we're fine. So I think that was a really great turning point in our life, and she saw that as a turning point for me myself as well. But then again, she saw me go through a difficult time in high school and senior year. I think that might have been sad for her. And then while we were together, we became very, very close in Florida and Canada during COVID, and that was just the mess. And then we spent a lot of time together in Hong Kong before we left. But then, yeah, I haven't seen her in now over 13 months, which is so sad and scary, but I'm seeing her very soon. But she's been someone who, or I'm Nicole, Allie is someone who's always got my back, who always knows that there's something going on, will talk to me about everything, and can really be real with me.
I love that. And I love how different that description is from the way you describe yourself as well. I think there's something so special about like the way you are to other people. And I think you articulated it that very well for us today. One last question on the topic of introducing ourselves. What is something that you wish people knew about yourself?
Oh my goodness. I wish people knew that I'm a sensitive person. I think I put up too many barriers, and like this is something that I've like, it's been one of my like character goals, if you will, of 2021, is to be more vulnerable. And like I've definitely come a long way, but I still think people think I'm like always happy. Oh, that's one thing too. I'm not always happy. I guess A, I'm sensitive, and B, I'm not always happy. Those are definitely the two things, because I definitely have like a joy complex. Pixar's Inside Out Joy. I have a joy complex that I always have to be happy, not be vulnerable. But in reality, that's not who I am, nor someone I want to be or be around for that matter. So I need to stop telling myself that no one wants to see the emotions that I have and only wants to see like the highlights of my life. People want to see everything in between, not just the good days.
What do you think that turning point was for you?
Oh, definitely COVID. Definitely COVID. Yeah, or like starting a live vibe as well. Like coming into a live vibe, I was like, yeah, everything's perfect. Da, da, da. And like as I was having these conversations on Zoom with people, like initially I didn't know it all. I was like, no one feels comfortable, or people feel sus when you talk to someone with a lack of connection or lack of vulnerability. That's why like we're so freaked out by like leaders or administration who are like, yeah, everything's good, it's so BS. Like we don't like leaders, everything from like principals to like CEOs, who feel like they have no connection with like their people around them because they never share like their struggles, or they never speak candidly during the good days and the bad days. So while I was there, I realized like I feel like I'm lacking something. I feel like there's something else there. And like putting yourself out there, it's super scary to be vulnerable. It really, really, really is. But like once you're able to get there, once you're able to put yourself in a situation where you know you could potentially be hurt, but that's still the opportunity for you to make yourself grow and also connect with someone you might not otherwise done, or just have conversations and discover more about yourself as well. Like fail, it's okay. It's really, really, really okay. It allows you to grow. It really is. And like you talked about this a lot. Like I love how you bring so many cool elements of failure into the podcast, and like you talk about like how failure shapes you. Like I love these questions you bring, and I think it's so true, because we've always been told failure equals bad. In reality, like if one thing didn't fail, like none other thing would have popped up. And like I think that's so beautiful. Like I think everything comes in cycles, and nothing can just be labeled as an absolute good or an absolute evil, or in that case absolute failure, absolute success.
For sure.
That's a long-winded answer.
I love it. We do a lot of long-winded answers, and I love
Absolutely.
Okay, so where do you think your entrepreneurial spirit really started? So I know that you grew up in a family that was pretty entrepreneurially centered, but was there like a specific story or anecdote that really like drove you in this direction, or you're like, whoa, this is so cool, I love creating?
Yeah. I think obviously I've thought about this a little bit as we've asked our own podcast guests. So there's a couple of stories that bring me to attention. One is, of course, I did the old lemonade stand thing. So I did then, I had people we did cookies, the Betty Crocker cookie mix. I went around Stanley outside my door. I would even sell Coke. Like I sold like cans of Coke we had extra. I was like, yeah, whatever. My parents had a wine business where they import and export wine, and I would do like the accounting and stuff for them. And then we'd also do like manual labor, no doubt. Like we'd have to move like boxes and boxes of wine from like a warehouse in Taiwan to Hong Kong to like on like go-go van trucks. And like, that's like stuff we had to do the weekends and things like that. And then also just being around a lot of entrepreneurs and things like that. And I never realized they were called entrepreneurs at the time. Just like, oh yeah, this person like runs their own business, or this person started something up. And being in dinners, being in conversations and hearing the stories and the ups and downs, it was always something that was kind of fused into me. And then I think I started my very first, like, I'm doing this like professionally, or not professionally, like not within like the comfort of like my home, when in the summer of going into my sophomore year or junior, I want to say sophomore year, I started working for this, no, I don't even want to call it a startup. It was really, my uncle was like, hey, these two guys who live near us, they're at business school now, and they have like this side hustle where they bring like Chinese families to Canada to give them like a authentic Canadian summer experience. Like, that's cool. I got on a call with them, and I don't even know how it happened. Like, it literally feels like a decade ago, but it was only like a couple of years ago. And we started talking, and I was like, I want to get involved. So it was just the three of us. And I remember being in like 10th, I think it was 11th. I think it was 11th grade actually. Being in 11th grade and doing, it was called Maple Lakes Adventure. And yeah, they brought in Chinese families to Canada who wanted to come to Canada in the summer and have like a camp experience, being in the wilderness or going to Niagara Falls and going in Toronto. And they like planned like a whole trip, but it was like so much more of that. It was like a cultural experience too. And like, I played so many hats while I was there. Like, yes, like I built and designed the website, but also we communicated with like the customers, and we did marketing. We did WeChat marketing, and I had to find vendors and create proposals, and also had to create like business cards for them and do research on like the best things. And like, we just did so many different things. And they even were able to bring me out to Shanghai for a weekend. We did like a pitch for some hundreds of customers, which is like crazy. And that was such an insane thing. I did so much graphic design with them as well. Like, I did so many posters and videos, I did photos and that sort of thing. And I remember at this distinct moment, I was sitting like, you know how like in high school you have to take like these like credits that like really don't matter. Like, I was in this like random art credit that like, it was like beyond, like it was nothing, that I was like the only, there was like 12 people there. The teacher didn't really care. It was like, you write a reflection once a month and you're going to get an A class. So I was in that class. I remember like sitting there, and I was like working on this like design. I had to do a lot of translations to English and Chinese as well. And I was like, this is so cool. Like, I literally felt like Wonder Woman or like Superman or Spider-Man, whatever. I felt like I had like a double identity, and like this, I thought it was just so cool. I never knew like what the next task was going to be. Another thing too with that, and this is like not, this is like, I got paid doing that, and that was a whole situation. I'm like, whoa, like I could have been paid, like not paid with this. Like, I like all my summer internships, like I wasn't paid. It was like, yeah, sometimes they would like provide lunch there, but like I was never paid. This thing, I remember writing to the beginning, I was like, I deserve like a student wage. And I was like, here's a fair student wage
Interesting.
in Canada. This is what, like, I think it was maybe, I want to say 15 Canadian dollars, which isn't bad. It was like 12 US dollars, I want to say. And like, I was working remotely. I would log my hours. I would send them my hours at the end of each month. And I would send it to my parents' bank account, because I don't have a bank account yet because I wasn't 18. And then they would send it to me. And then during the same time, I was also in high school. I always like coached soccer in high school, which was fun. And like, they paid me too, which I loved. But I really just did that out of like love. But then I think when I was 15 or 16, 15 for sure. Because yeah, definitely 15. I started working at, I worked at two stores actually. One for 6 months and one for a year. On Saturdays for like 8 hours, and sometimes on Sundays. I worked at a cashmere store in Hong Kong in Central. And I learned that I don't want to be a salesperson at a store, but it was an incredible experience. But what I love most about it was being able to speak Chinese to customers. And that was like the best time, or like talking to people who came from around the world when people used to travel. Like, it was on Hollywood Road, which is a pretty like touristy spot in Hong Kong, where there's that famous wall where people take photos of. And like, we had all these people come from around the world. We had like people from England and Korea and Japan and South Africa, and they would come all the time, and they would share stories. And what is this store, Kashmir? And I thought it was so cool. Like, it wasn't something that I found myself, oh, I'm going to pursue a career in, but it was just gaining that experience again, like having something I could work hard for, talk to people, learn a different skill. It was like so random of how I started to do that. Eventually, because of like different commitments and pursuing some other opportunities, I ended up discontinuing that. But it was such a cool thing that I was always happy I was able to do as well, because I think having some sort of like manual labor job to some degree, and that can be like working in like a restaurant or working in like a clothing store, like something that like the average person who like, at least at my school, like didn't think they were going to pursue as a career, was such like a grounding experience, but also such a fantastic way to like explore different opportunities and like have some sort of routine outside of like, yeah, just doing academics that was really fun and like gave you another life or give you another perspective. So yeah, those are the different jobs and stuff I did younger sort of starts of entrepreneurial journey. Again, another long-winded answer.
I love it. And I think so many stories that I haven't even heard, which is awesome. Especially like, I think there's so much value in like working at a store. Like it, first of all, I think just like from a baseline perspective, it gives you so much more respect for people who like do it as a living and like so much more patience. Because it's a really hard job and it teaches you a lot of like really awesome skills. And so I love that you have learned so many different things and have pursued so many different experiences. I was wondering, you have all of these different hats. Where do they all come together? Like, what is the tying thread?
I think the tying thread is being able to have conversations and talk to people. Like my favorite part of doing the lemonade stand was like I would be able to like talk to, why do you want to sell? I remember one time I went to sell lemonade or cookies or something like that, and there was like a mom there and she's like, okay, pitch it to me. Why should I sell it? Because this time I was doing it for like a charity. And I remember this is like on the Stanley Promenade, there was like a soccer court or soccer field. There's that soccer court there, and there was a mom there, and I was like, hey, I'm selling lemonade for this, blah blah blah. She's like, okay, pitch it to me. 1 minute. Why do you have to do it? And I was like, oh my god. And I was like, I love the challenge. I was like, okay, I love the thrill. The clothing store, as I mentioned, my favorite thing was like speaking to customers in English and Chinese and hearing their stories of why they were there. Within soccer, I love talking to the girls and coaching them. Like I was like the first age group of girls that played soccer at my school. Like we were the first class. So it was really cool. Yeah, like the program started when I was in first grade, which was like the first year. They still do it now. So I was like all the way up. I was like there's only like 6 of us in the first year, and like we did it all the way up. So it was a really big part of my experience as well, like having to go that full circle. But like even now, like everything I do I think revolves around conversation and some sort of communication, orally particularly. Like we do some other stuff, of course there's some writing and videos and things, but like having the serendipity of casual candid conversations is so beautiful and so authentic to me. Like I think it's the most basic human thing, and I love that anything you can do in one way or another all ties back to that, having those conversations.
I love that. And that's such a you answer. I feel like, how did you
That's so you, Allie. Oh, Allie.
How did you get to that point?
How did I get to the point of realizing that I knew I loved conversation? I think it came from a place of, sometimes after you have like a fun experience, sometimes like either you're with someone or you're by yourself and you have this like jittery butterfly feeling in your stomach. You're like, why do I feel so good right now? I realized, like, psychoanalyzing myself after time, I always felt those feelings after I had a good conversation with someone, or after I felt good. Like, for example, last night after we had our podcast recording for Kind of All Good, my friend came over to my room and we were just like talking, and we felt and I was feeling like weird and kind of in a weird, we just had a good conversation. I felt like a butterfly feeling in my stomach as I went to bed. Like I just felt like good. And even last night, like I feel excited by conversations. Like it totally makes my day, like one good conversation or one good experience share, one good story, and like I cite it throughout my day. So I'm like, oh, like I had lunch with two Polish friends yesterday, and were talking to me about Polish politics, and I was talking about it with my friends last night who were like Swiss and Singaporean, and it was just like cool to tie the knots and seeing how conversations are like a common thread, and like citing your conversations like as a timeline throughout your life. And like I cite them like literature. I'm not even joking. Like I literally see it as like my biggest cited works of life. My cited works of my life are conversations.
I love that. And that's so true. Like, are you one of those people who like remembers memories based on conversations that you've had?
Oh my gosh.
A lot of the memories that are very clear in my head surround like a conversation. They could be literally about anything. But I know some people like resonate with like sounds or resonate with like smells, but would love to hear what you remember most.
Yeah, I remember you talked to me about this, which I thought was so cool. But yeah, thinking about it retrospectively now, I think a lot of it comes from the feelings I have from conversations. Sometimes I would say most of the time I remember like particularly the conversation, what I talk about. But as time goes on, I don't remember exactly what the conversation was about. I remember just feeling so good about the conversation. I was like, that was good. Like even last night, I'm like, what did we talk about again? Like we talk about so many things. Like after a while, like you forget what you talk about because you touch on so many cool things and there's so many levels to it, but you just realize it was a good conversation, and that's all that matters at the end of the day.
I love that. Yeah. All about like the feelings. And
Exactly.
so what do you do on a relaxing day? Like give
Oh my
me,
goodness.
so I know you don't have, you are
Ideal.
very busy, but what is like your
No.
ideal like rest day?
Oh my goodness. So first of all, I want to be woken up by the sun in whatever aspect that is.
Ooh, that's
I rarely sleep with the blinds closed. I don't know why. I don't like it in the night. Like I don't like seeing the dark outside, but then like in the morning, like for example, right now, like I see the blue, like I just feel so energized by that. And I mean, whatever time, like I don't care what time I wake up on it. It's not like the time doesn't matter. For me, it's about the hours of sleep, not about the timing. Like
oh interesting.
usually, like generally speaking, like I go to bed earlier and I wake up earlier. However, if like for example, last night I went to bed at like 1 because I was talking to my friend. I woke up at 9 today because like I need 8 hours and like that's like the most important thing for me. Like I need my sleep and it's about like moving, shifting that schedule. Of course, there's days that like I get 6 and 7, but that's not what we try to do. And like I feel so off in like all aspects of my life if that becomes like a 2-3 day thing in the row. Like I feel so off. Like emotionally, I'm like so much more like snappy. I just feel I feel lethargic. I just don't like it. So yeah, definitely a good night's sleep. I'm definitely a breakfast person, so definitely a good breakfast. A lot of movement during the day. Like I like an off day, like I'm not talking about like I need to get this done within 1 hour. I need to stretch. I need to okay. I've got this time. Like I can finish whenever I want to finish, like the workout or some sort of movement. Definitely being with people. Like I like to be with people my off days. However, recently I've definitely noticed I like my introspective days. Recently, that would be an episode or two of American's Next Top Model. Definitely some dark chocolate. Loving a face mask once in a while, but also that's more of like okay, I should do this because I know I feel good. A good shower, a good bath, that feels good. Off day as well, honestly, just like lying in some sort of position that feels comfortable. I mean, that could literally be like lying in bed, sure, but for me, my bed is like a place of sleep. Like I want to relax, so sometimes like I'll literally sit at like a cafe and just like sit in the sun. Like it feels so lovely to just like just let the rays come in,
Mhm.
bask. Yes, just go slow. I think that's a big thing as well. Oh yeah, so two main things: being slow on and off like a rest day, and B, having nothing in the Google Calendar, nothing on the to-do list, like literally
Ooh,
nothing. That's it.
I love it. And by being slow, what do you mean?
Ooh. By slow, I mean there isn't like a deadline. There's not a timetable. I don't have to get anywhere by any time. Like even on like an off day, like I get stressed. I'm like, oh, I have to be there by this time for like a dinner. Like even that, I'm like, I don't want to. Like I want to be able to completely just feel intuitive and flowy with my body. Do what I want to do, like be with people I want to be around, eat what time I want to eat, that sort of thing. Because on an average day, I'm like, okay, like this time, like this is like my only time, like I can do this. Like I have to like squeeze this in now. Like this is the time. Or if I don't finish it now, I can't do it. So I have to do it now. So there's not much choice. So I want to give myself a lot of choice during the day in terms of how to spend my
Mm.
time. Because unfortunately, sometimes I feel like I don't get to. I like it's ironic. Like I'm the one who tells myself I don't have time, but like I'm the one who makes myself have no choice in my time. Like that's how I schedule my time. But then I'm like mad at myself at the end. Not mad. I'm just at conflict with myself when I feel like, oh my gosh, my days are so scheduled. Cause like I compare myself to like other kids in my school and they're like, whoa, like I can do this at whatever time. I was like, how do you do this? Like, how do you have time? But I'm like, no, it's because like I schedule my time differently. And this is like how we prioritize. So that's a whole other thing to get into.
Oh my goodness. I love how your answer to this like led us to this idea of choice. Like your ideal day is a day of
Mm,
choice. And that's so
yeah.
fascinating because I feel like a lot of people are like, I want a day where I like do nothing, lay in bed, watch TV, right? But at the crux of it, like you want your ideal day could happen, right? Like it could happen tomorrow, but it's like the choice of making it happen. And so that's like super fascinating. What stops you from having your ideal day?
Oh my God, that's so beautiful. What stops you from having my ideal day is definitely the mindset. Like even ideal days can be like we've had this conversation before about like what would you do your last day you're alive? And like I have a I have a pretty good idea. Like I would say I'm at like 95%. Like I can perfectly describe what I think at this point in my life my ideal day would be. And like the day I have is pretty much a day I could have any day. Like it includes uh waking up early and going for a run and being outside and having my alone time in the morning, getting some like work that I love, like passionate work undone, like calling people that I'm not around because wherever I am in the world, there's there's someone I love that I'm not with. That's like this narrative of my life. So doing that in some extent, having like a big party of some sort of celebration. Like, this is the last day I'm alive, but like being around people in lunch and like socially eating, that's a big thing. I hate eating alone. Like, I really find it sad for me. And like, there's many days I have to do that in college, and like, I don't feel good about that. Like, that's not something that like makes me feel good. Yeah, being outside for sure, having a small, more intimate dinner and that sort of thing, and feeling energized and reflective, and listening and learning a lot throughout the day too. Everything from like people who are smart and know different things about things I don't know about, everything from arts to sciences to languages, but also listening to podcasts, watching a good movie that energizes me, like feeling inspired. And like, to some extent, that can be done for me any day. Like, I'm not saying like, oh, I want to go skydiving, I want to go here. That's all things I want to do. And like, that's like that will happen in some time and someday. But the last day I want to do, the last day, like the most me, is that, and that can be done to some extent any day. And what stops you from doing that, even like today or any other day, is like the mindset. When I like the mindset in the morning, like I really feel like your morning paints your day. And if I wake up like, and I, as I was speaking to you before this, like with negative self-talk, I don't want to give myself that day. I'm like, I don't deserve that day. Like, I shouldn't have that day. Like, I'm not good enough, or like I can just not have it. Or if it's like, I don't do one thing, none of it else works. Like, I feel like with days I'm either like, ugh, less so I would say now, but I used to be very like, if this one thing doesn't happen, the rest of the day is bad. Like, it'd be like, oh, if I have like a bad interaction with someone, like the whole day is ruined. Or like, if I don't run well, whatever, or I don't do this, or I feel bad about myself, like the whole day is ruined. I'm like, I let it mask that. But I think days are and I've been saying this for the last like 2 months now, days feel like weeks to me now. My days feel and like, I'm not staying up like crazy amounts. It's not like I'm waking up at like 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. and then going to bed at like 2 a.m. It's not like the days are like literally hours longer. I just feel like so much happens, and I allow my days to have so many different chapters. Like, that's what I really love. Like, there's different chapters of my day, which is so beautiful.
I love that. That's such a good way of putting it, because I feel like
Mhm.
the person that you wake up as is so different
Yeah,
from the person you like go to sleep as.
exactly.
And those like micro changes in the way
Yeah,
that make those happen are crazy.
totally. You're
Um,
right. Like, literally getting, like being lucky and like getting, I don't know, like making the train or something like that. You're like, yep, today's a good day. Like, little things like that, like change the vibe completely, which I think is so cool as well.
yeah. Like the fact that someone, or like we're so malleable to like such small things, right?
Mhm.
Like such small things change our day. And the fact that like, I don't know, it's so crazy to think like, if
It
this
is.
one stoplight goes, like is it
Yes.
today? And like if it's not, there's a TikTok where this guy has like a really old dog. It's called Noodle. And every day he does this TikTok where he's like, is it a bones day or is it a no bones day? Have I told you about this?
Oh my God. I don't think so. Tell me.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so he like takes his dog and he's like, is today a no bones day, a bones day? And he like takes his dog and like tries to make the dog stand up. And the dog sometimes just like has like no bones in quotations where like it just falls back down. And he's like, on a no
Oh,
bones day, like take care of yourself. And then on a bones day, he's
oh,
like, today do something like special, do something like out of it. Cause like Noodles is on your side, and it's like such
oh,
small little things that like
the
make your
small wins.
for sure.
Absolutely too.
What has been a small win in your life recently?
Ooh, small win in my life recently. It's not a small win. It was actually such a bitch to get, but it's small. Like, when I think about it, at least in the grand scheme of things, was getting my French visa. It was so
That's a
annoying to get it
big
here.
thing.
But when I got it, I've been so stressed about that. Like, so stressed about that for whatever reason. Cause like growing up, my parents always dealt with my visas. If I need a visa, like I didn't go. Like, my parents I didn't realize it was like a trouble, first of all. And being with COVID and everything, like it's double trouble. And also being in a country that's difficult to get visas, originally from neither the countries, being in China, getting a French visa as a Canadian in China, it's been crazy. So many documents I needed, so many interviews, so much money to get a freaking visa. And when it came, I'm like, definitely not worth it. But like, now we got it, and we're super, super, super happy and excited
And you're
about that.
ready
But
to
that
go
was
to Paris.
I'm excited. I'm excited. So yeah, that was a small win. Even like getting it, I was like, wow, this was for a sticker in my passport. Oh my God. Okay. Got
I
it.
love it. Okay, so we've talked about like the beginning of your entrepreneurial journey. I want to dive in a little deeper to Alive Vibe. I know when you did Alive Vibe, you were a solo founder. Talk to me about the experience. I actually don't know a lot about like your journey as a founder, your main takeaways during that time.
Yeah. So I started alone because I had this idea I was so passionate about, and I didn't want to wait. And things are moving quickly with COVID. I thought if I could do this now, like it's like a now or never moment. So I'm just going to get started. That said, though, I built up a team very quickly. And one of my best friends, Sophie, she became our COO like very, very quickly as well. And she did so much of the operational stuff, which was like, I would not do anything about her, but like she was basically like a co-founder, but like a later co-founder, I want to say, but I was still like the founder. Anyways, with that as well, again, it started with like Zoom call. I invited like 6 friends from around the world. We did these things. And I said, invite one person, invite one person, invite one person. It was almost like the, what's it called? Not handshake. What's Clubhouse? It was like invite one person, because it wasn't like something I wasn't marketing. I never did any paid marketing, but we still reached like tens of thousands of people because of this, like invite one person. And I was doing everything once. Like I tried everything. I tried every research, like, and like, because it was me, like it became such like the thing of my life. Like it was literally like my personality. I like didn't care about like high school anymore. Like I was already in college. It was like COVID, everything was out. We were in the middle of nowhere in Canada. I didn't have like activities or whatever. Like this was like everything to me. And it was such a beautiful time to be able to fully focus on that. But when people talk about like it becomes your life, it becomes it, like it literally was. It was like the first thing I thought about when I went to bed, the last thing I thought about when I went to bed. It was everything. The first thing I thought about when I woke up, last thing I thought about when I went to bed. I did throughout the day, so many ideas of innovation. There was different parts of the day as well. So there was parts of the day where I was like focused on like going to the events, like being there and active. There was more like development days where I was focusing on like branding and long-term growth and development and like more general entrepreneurial things and like how to grow, meeting with advisors, meeting with the team. Like it literally was like my full-time job for like 5 months, and like that's how I think I was able to grow, which was like crazy. However, I think at a point I was like very burnt out because it was so intense. Even though like it was such a community thing, there was so much work I was doing behind the scenes that like no one really saw, and it wasn't super glamorous, so I didn't like post and share about that. But there was so much work that went into that like people never saw, and like it's not super interesting, at least I thought, to talk about it. But there was a lot of things to like behind the scenes back end to put together, the managing, the grit, the community. But like what was so beautiful was like hearing the stories and the connections, like from people literally like dating from a live out for now like 2 years to like people how have learned people's lives and influences, friendships, like learning, presentations, people to be able to share themselves and connect was like so beautiful. And I felt very bittersweet about like telling myself, okay, we're gonna like slow down the operations now. But I think everything comes in chapters, and I felt like I was like a failure for it. Like, oh my God, so it didn't become like a huge app and become like Eventbrite and take over or whatever. And like that made me feel like an absolute failure. Like literally, I was like, what the hell? This was for nothing. But the thing I tell myself now in many ways is like, it's the first journey of your entrepreneurial journey. Like it's the first thing I started. Like it still was like objectively like successful for like an 17, 18-year-old to start this and like for it to get to where it was. But also like not everything has to be a freaking Facebook, and like that's okay as well. Like the idea of something happening to be like it's only valid if it's like the biggest thing ever is not it. And also there's like different chapters, different times and different iterations at it. And I think the idea of like virtual events and connecting through like scaling intimacy, like that idea, that was like my guiding thing. Like I want to scale intimacy. I didn't like big events. I like 6-8 people on an event. I didn't want anything more because same with Entrepreneurs in Action. Like I don't like big events because I feel like you can't have good conversations when you have anything more than like 6-8 people. You don't want to be vulnerable with like 12, 20, 15, 20, 100 people. Like that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, for sure.
At least unscripted, right? Unless you're like, oh, I'm going to tell this story, where it feels like you're talking to a black hole. It doesn't feel like you're talking to people. And I want to keep reiterating that you're really speaking to people who each have their own opinion and they want to share and reshare back. So I do have ideas, of course, in the future of how I want to like iterate on that and like take derivatives of a live vibe. Definitely the first stab of what this idea is, and that we want to scale intimate events. But it was truly the most learning experience of my life. And like I have so many records of it. Like I journal every day, I have all my stories and everything there. We have like a huge Instagram, which is pretty much like a love letter to it. We have a documentary I still have yet to release, and that's something as well. There's like a 15-minute documentary about a live vibe that my friend made. And I'm so scared to release it because I feel like everyone's going to judge me. And I just feel so cringe about it now.
Oh my
Like
goodness.
that's the
No,
whole
you
thing
have
too.
to. That's amazing.
Like I'll send it to you. I don't know. I feel so uncertain about it. And now I feel like we finished the documentary like 6 months, more than 6 months ago. We finished it like 7-8 months ago. And it was supposed, and like I never shared it. We had all these people like submit all these interviews and personal stories, and it was edited. Now I just feel so strange about it. But I still want to pay tribute to it.
Why do you think you feel strange about it?
I'm so self-judging, and I feel like people are going to look at it and be like, that wasn't enough or that wasn't good. And that's something so sad as well. Like I always want to do more. I always want to like think it's more than that. And like I compare myself to these just like ridiculous standards. So I feel like anything that I were to do, it needs to be like absolutely like objectively amazing and validated by others. I find myself sad sometimes thinking about entrepreneurship because I see it as a way, as a cop out for others to validate me, and I can only validate myself. Like I have this complex that I think no one is going to accept me. And I mean everything from like people to like institutions or opportunities. Like no one's going to accept me. Like no one sees me as an application, or no one sees me as something that I could be accepted to or intertwined in. So I have to start everything myself. And
Mhm.
although people on the outside see like, well, like that's cool, you started something myself, I feel like it comes from like my internal like fear that it's like it's because no one's going to accept me, so I have to do it myself because I'm not going to be allowed in, or I'm not going to be winning this, or I'm not going to be the chosen one, so I have to choose myself. And it feels, so I think although people like glamorize entrepreneurship, like wow, that's so cool, like you want to go off on your own, it's like I don't have a choice because I wouldn't be allowed if I wasn't. Like I feel like I wouldn't, it sounds so sad, but let's say for a lack of, let's say I'm successful for a 19-year-old, for the sake of this conversation, let's say I'm a successful 19-year-old. I believe, and for right or for wrong, that I wouldn't be considered successful if I didn't pursue any form of entrepreneurship, because no one would accept me or no one would validate me if it not in the world of me doing something myself, because I wasn't ever an objectively competitive candidate against people around me. So I had to build my own world. I had to build my own world. I remember listening to, I like, this is such a distinctive moment. I remember being in like an 11th or 10th
Mhm.
grade, listening to a Tony Robbins podcast at the gym one day. And like, I remember exactly what machine I was on. Like, this was such a
Oh
moment
my
for me.
goodness.
And he was like, to be, I'm going to butcher the quote, but the idea is if you want to be a little bit better than everyone else, then, sorry, if you want to be arithmetically better than everyone else, then you need to do the same thing as everyone else, just a little bit better. So it was like, let's say you want to, you're in school, whatever, and you want to get like the top grade in the class. Okay, you need to like work a little bit harder than everyone else. You need to study harder, and then you can get the top grade. Okay, sure. But if you want to be exponentially better than everyone else, you have to do something completely different in a complete different realm. And I was like, fuck, like that's what I'm gonna do. Like that's what I want to do. And like that's how I kind of see
Mhm.
entrepreneurship. But then I go back and I'm like, no, it's like a cop out because I couldn't even be arithmetically better. Like I couldn't even compete against other people. Like I'm in a different realm because I don't want anyone to even compare themselves against me, because I feel like if they would compare themselves against me, they would see that I'm way, way, way worse and I'm not good enough.
Interesting. I don't think I've ever
So that's
learned that
my
about your
therapy.
entrepreneurial journey.
I've never said that out loud. I've never been able to like articulate that.
No, 100%. But it makes a lot of, I feel like it makes a lot of sense for you, but also like on a more general level. I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs actually like resonate with that story. And thank you for sharing that, first of all. Second of all, like I I completely get it. Like I get it to some degree. We've talked about like external and internal validation.
Yeah.
Um, but I feel like in some ways entrepreneurship is a great way to like grow what validation means to you. Like I feel like especially with the Entrepreneurs Network, um, I remember Diana told us like if you don't believe in yourself or you don't believe in this project, like nobody else will. Which is a slight tangent from what you're saying. Wow, I'm in awe about your vulnerability and just like knowing the growth that you've taken to get to this point to be able to share that. Um, that I'm really left kind of speechless. I feel like I need to
It's
go back and like reflect a little bit about what you said.
yeah, I think a lot comes from like I was always at the same school, and I was in the
Yeah.
same environment. There was always the same kids doing the same thing. And like I had this, I was talking to my friend about this yesterday, and like no disrespect at all, but I genuinely believe like I predicted COVID or something crazy was gonna happen. Like I could never, like I don't know how to put this. There was like a there was a being in my body that believed like I was never gonna graduate high school. Like I thought it was like I'm gonna die, like nothing's gonna happen, like something's gonna happen. Like I could never see something
Oh,
happening. And then
interesting.
like it did. Like I can't even tell you. Like something so deep inside of me told me like I was never like senior year was not gonna happen. Like ever since I was like so like I could never imagine it. Like never, ever, ever. That's the first thing. And the second thing was um I always really saw myself as an outsider, like a weirdo. Like I've always been like a professional weirdo. I never fully fit in for someone. Like it was like for a while I felt like, oh, like they'll accept me for a little bit and then like no. And then like, yeah, I always feel like I have a good first impression, but once you get to know me, you're not gonna like me. And that it's another element of like the vulnerability as well. It's like I feel like people receive me well at first, but then once they get to know me, I feel like they either get annoyed with me or they get bored or they get turned off or there's an experience or whatever happens. And that's like, it's not like it's happened a lot, or it's not like it's even happened for anything to talk about, but it's a fear of mine. So I'm like, I don't want, because I think I've received that from other people too. Like, because I think first impressions, everyone puts like their best foot forward if you have a good first impression. And I'm always scared to jump out of the first impression zone of a relationship. And that's a big thing for me. And I don't just mean your first impression is like the first time meeting someone. A first impression zone can last for months or like a year even. Like still being on that like first impression, like, oh, ha ha ha. And like once you step out of the first impression, you're like, no, like this is a little bit more of me. Not like this is the true me. This is just more of me. It's a lot.
No, I completely get that. It reminds me, there's a couple friends here on campus where I really just want to be their friend. Like I see them as like such wonderful people and I always feel good when I'm around them. But I do find myself like biting back on like the parts of me that I know are a little quirkier or I know are a little weirder. And that always leads to the question of like, wait, like, are these people like really friends? But they are. It's just like me holding back on like all aspects of myself because of that fear, right? Like that fear of like, am I like, will they still like me after they know who I am? I think is a big driving force. And then there's other people as well who like immediately when you meet them, like you're like, you click, they know who you are, they really do, and like it just works.
With our relationship, it's really interesting. Like I don't know if this is like time to dive into it deeper, but like I just want to talk about it like very, very briefly. Like you've changed my life so much in the last 8 months, 9 months, almost 9 months, which is crazy. Literally 9 months. But yeah, mid-March, end of March, and it's December. Oh my goodness. But like again, everyone knows this now. Weilyn and I, yes, we went to middle school and high school together. Like we knew each other for 7 years. Middle school, like I've like very limited like specific interactions with you. Like I know we were in the same classes, like for sure, and like we know that. But I think we started like to have more relatively meaningful conversations in high school. But even with that, like we were not what I would consider. I felt so difficult. Like I'm just gonna put this on record, like for the first time, even with you now, like I felt so scared to be vulnerable with you. Like I felt like I had to impress you so much. And, like I felt so much like I had to like prove myself to you and like be this person with you. But then I felt like this sounds so weird. I literally felt like I was like your charity case in some ways, which like anytime you're talking to me, it felt like charity, which was like such a weird thing to think about as well. But I was in like such awe of like being around you because like it's not about the fact, okay, I'm not talking about the aspects of like objectively that like you are a fantastic person by acclimates and awards. Like that's a separate thing. There's a lot of people in a lot of schools and a lot of worlds who are great. I was just so in awe of your character to complimenting that and how that went together, because that was something I've never seen like in person. Like I've never seen that, and like I thought that was the most amazing thing ever. And I was like, how is this like this is amazing. Like I have a distinct memory of us sitting together at a restaurant. I remember like at a restaurant in Hong Kong together. We were I remember specifically, like I was on like this, I was wearing a purple dress. I remember that specifically because like, I remember like you took a photo and like I took a photo of you. Like, I remember that specifically. I remember like, she is such a warm person and she's so personable. Like there's certain people in your life. Like I met someone on Sunday as well. Like you meet, there's this quote in The Great Gatsby where the narrator, the main character, he's like, he talks about Gatsby's smile and he's like, it's a smile you only see 4 or 5 times in your life. Like it's a thing. And I would say with the same idea with like people who make every single person in the room feel like they're important, like it, and like that person's important objectively as well, but they make every single person in the room feel as equally as important, as equally as valued. And like I see that now, I see that in the past, like the way you were even able to start like the gratitude project and you spoke with the guards at HKIS, like that's not something that anyone else was doing, but you made them feel as important, as equal, as valid as every single person. So you were speaking to me and I felt so valued and honored, and the way you would ask questions and engage, it was just something so much. But I was scared that like if we were to continue, or like I were to tell you more, you would like you'd be freaked out, you'd like run away if I were to get vulnerable with you. And like that, like again, okay, disclaimer, I wasn't in a good place in my life at that point as well. I was like, that's true. But also it's a matter of like, I think there was a lot of growth that happened. And then again, like during COVID, like we didn't I don't even know. We can go through our messages. Like, I don't have any recollection of us chatting during COVID.
No,
Like, I don't think we did at all. I think honestly, no tea, no shade. But I think the only thing I might have like messaged you because I messaged literally everyone in our school. Like, hey, do you want to host an event for a live vibe? And like, you probably left me on red, but don't worry, everyone in our school left me on red. I think that could have been the only thing. No tea, no shade. It was like all over the place. Like, there was no context to that. I think that was the only thing. But then again, no, we met once in Hong Kong. No, twice in Hong Kong after COVID. I don't know what instigated that. I think it was like, because we there was no tea. There was like, we were good. We were just like friendly.
Yeah.
We were like
no,
friendly
for
people who
sure.
wanted to talk. And it was like, hey, what are you doing next semester? Like, I remember it being like very like surface levelly, but then we went like a run or we were on the thing and like that was fun. Like we were talking a little bit more. It was like, this is cool. This was cool. And then that kind of faded out. And then when
we
you
saw
went
each
to
other.
did we?
Yeah, and then we went to school. We started our semester and then we saw each other again.
Yes.
Before you left.
Yes. You're right. We did.
Right?
We totally did. And then that was it. I don't think we chatted from then till March. Because I remember receiving your text and I was like, this is so random. I remember telling my friend here, I was like some from my high school just chatted me like, this is crazy. And like, that's how I refer to you. Some from my high school.
I remember I was like in line at the dining hall and I was like, oh, I really want to start this, but like, who do I message?
Really?
Well, you also gave this rant about how nice of a person I am. But honestly, I feel like there are so many things that like I first of all can say about you, and just like I actually do want to go on a little tangent about that. But
kind of a good tangent.
I think like that's definitely been something I honestly struggled a lot with. Like I felt like I for a long time like didn't feel like I had a place, or like I always wanted to like, I don't know. It came from a place where like I was bullied a lot when I was little. And so like definitely like making people feel equal was like definitely a driving force. So like, thank you. That means a lot to me. Truly, like from the bottom of my heart. But the second thing I want to bring out is like, you have been literally like a turning point in my life for years now, like literal years. I think like the first thing that I've always admired you for was just like your energy. And we said this at the beginning of the podcast too, but I've literally never met anyone who is able to bounce back, first of all, from like anything and everything with like such great attitude. But like second, like you see so much beauty in the world and like beauty in other people that like it's like remarkable. Like I want to live my day like you. And like sometimes it's like, it's almost like sad that I can't. Like I really do want to live like every day with like the energy. And I know this doesn't happen every day for you, but like you have such a spark within you to like carry the day in like such a beautiful way and like be excited about it. And like, I don't know, sometimes when I get stressed about like little things, I feel like your energy always has brought me up. And if I'm being honest, when we were talking in PE class, I remember like the complete opposite of how you were feeling. Like I felt so honored to like that you were like even speaking to me, because like in our high school, like not to like call anyone out, but like you were pretty like popular, like not by like not that we had like labels or like groups, but like in my mind, you were like cool and popular. And I was like not cool or popular. I was like definitely like token nice person that everyone was just like, well, I guess she's our class president, so she like is somewhere floating around in this social hierarchy. But besides the popular thing, like I've always just like admired your like energy and the fact that you had like, you wanted to like interact with me and like bring that energy to our conversations was just like a whole nother level. And then just like from there, like seeing you grow and seeing you open up and kind of like our dynamic too, and like that growing has meant literally the world to me. Like I don't think I would be the same person without you, which is crazy.
Oh my God. Weilyn, you're gonna make me cry. I'm serious. Like you really are.
A little love letter.
Like it's crazy to unpack everything as well. I think people hold such standards to other people as well. But like again, I'm thinking objectively, like psychoanalyzing everything now. Like objectively, like we don't have like very similar interests in like paper. Like outside of like entrepreneurship and like academics, I guess, like we just had similar, like you were very much into debate. I was into like I think I did a lot of stuff with like, I don't know, like just object, like, I don't know. Okay. What I'm trying to say is like,
different things.
Super, different circles. Yeah. Different circles, even like different interests, but then there was always like there was always a small overlap. Like it wasn't like I was like an art student, you were like the biology. It wasn't like so like that, but it was never enough overlap where I felt like, oh, we're super similar, like we might as well. Like I remember even being in classes together and you like, why do I have more memories when I think about you, like literally being in HAA together? Like I remember that being such a traumatic class. B, like I remember like that was, oh no, honest geometry, totally forgot about that. Honest geometry, definitely
I remember
ninth
that.
grade.
Oh
I
my
forgot,
goodness,
Mrs.
that's
McCarthy.
crazy.
Yeah.
Did you know we played soccer together very briefly?
I'm gonna be completely honest. I do not remember that. I'm gonna be completely honest. I'm so sorry. You know who Grace also told me that. Grace from the Entrepreneurs Network, when we had dinner at Chaka, she also told me that. And like I'm like, I'm so sorry. No, she told me she played with me too. And I'm like, I'm gonna be honest, I am so sorry. I don't remember that either.
No, I remember in 6th grade, I decided, I was like, if I stick with soccer for the next 8 years, I might be good. I was terrible. I stuck with it for maybe like a semester and I was like, oh, well, we gave it a shot. We gave it a nice trying shot. That's so funny though. I love it.
I'm so sorry. I definitely had a soccer ego. I definitely had a stick on my soccer ass. I really did. I definitely did. Because I was like one of the youngest ones. I was
so
like,
good.
No, but now I haven't played in a while, but like it was like, I don't know, it was always like a thing. It was always a thing. It was like I always hung with the same kids that like I played soccer with all the year up and it was fun. But yeah, I am so sorry. I should have been more. Yeah.
Oh my goodness, no, you're fine.
I always like
I don't even
people
remember.
to play soccer as well. Yeah. I'm so sorry about that. But
No,
yeah, I think
I was so embarrassed.
Coming back, so okay. So I'm saying psycho. Okay, so wasn't super similar. We weren't like in the super similar social circles. We weren't in the even like our families, they weren't like in the same like communities or cultural communities or like same thing. But I think there was like, this is gonna sound like wooju, but I would say something special about our relationship now and like how I compare with everyone else like, who were in our school was like an energy. Like I think people are like born with like an energy or like a spark in their thigh. I think you and I both had that spark and we couldn't like quantify that or say that, or even now you can't really quantify or say that, but it seems like you and I both have like this like outlook on life that was so rare for everyone else around us, which is why we kind of, and it wasn't about like, oh, I like this, I don't like this. It's like, this is how we view the world. This is how like people should be treated. This is like how I wake up and how I feel. And it wasn't something said, it was something kind of unsaid. And I feel like now we're saying it now we're like, we're getting it now like we've literally spoken for not even hours, days, not even days, weeks, probably by hours, weeks on Zoom, 1,200 times over than we have in person. Like these are the conversations like I always wish we had in person, but was too scared to be vulnerable. So I guess that's the theme of this podcast, like be vulnerable, be a vulnerable leader. That's the theme.
100%. Like that's motto for everything,
Motto.
But also just literally. Like so lucky always to have you as my co-host, but also as like one of my closest friends. Like I'm so honored
100%
to be a part of
no 100% life. Like even during like this, I remember in March or April, I was like, like a girl first you were a girl I went to from high school and I started talking about this. Then you were like my co-founder. Then you were my friend. Then you were like, oh, like then you were Weilyn. I started to like who I knew around and be like, oh, Weilyn. Like it was like you had a name in my life now that I can like talk to people who like didn't know you. Like, oh, Weilyn. And now because people know you, like people know you from the Entrepreneurs Network, like you know, they know you, they see your face, you're a real person, they hear you. So then you were Weilyn, and then you were close friends, and now you're then like last night I was in the DD call my friend. Oh my god, it was so funny actually. My friend for a school project, I'm gonna call him out right now. Bongani, I'm calling you out. He called me. I was finishing my dinner last night at like 9:30 and I was on the DD on the way home and I was like frequently I was like I had like my phone was at like 5%. I needed to like call you. I was like in a food coma. I need to get home. And he's like calling me on WeChat video call, which is like the most annoying way to call someone. And I was like, yes, what? He's like, how much was why wait? I was like, what do you mean how much was why wait? Like, which is fine. He's like, I'm doing it for a project. Like, I'm like, okay, I'll send you the accounting documents, blah, blah, blah. So I sent him that stuff. And he's like, wait, what are you doing, Allie? What's going on? I was like, oh, you know, I was like, da, da, da. And I was like, yeah, I'm hopping on a call with one of my best friends. I was like, oh my God, Weilyn. Yeah, she's one of my best friends. It's true. Like, I'm like, and like I didn't think about that. I just said it. I was like, yeah, that's it. It's true. Like you were right now, like you were one of my best friends. Like that's it. And I've never seen you in person.
I know. It's crazy
like,
to think.
Which is crazy. So like, it could all be a robot. This could all be a fake. This could all be a fake around my imagination, which is fine. I'll go for 12 years of therapy to go through this. But I think that's what's with the Live Vibe too. Like one of my best friends from Live Vibe, Juan Lucas. I went to school with him for like years. and we met on a live vibe, and then we became really close when we saw each other. So hopefully that same story happens with us.
Oh my goodness. Yes. No, 100%. It's
The
crazy
world's
to
gonna
think like
explode.
you were literally like besides my sister and my family, like you're like the one person who I feel like knows me. Like, you know me like in and out. Like, you were telling me this morning, like I was not having the best day and you were like, something's up. And I was like, I didn't even know something was up. And just like the fact that you are able to do that is truly amazing. Well, we definitely have to do a follow-up episode. Like, you have so many stories that like we need to uncover and unpack. So definitely part 2 will come out hopefully soon. But to end us off, oh, I guess we didn't do this in the beginning, but it's okay. 5 years from now, a young girl sits at the table. What do you want to leave for her?
This is really interesting advice I got last week from someone here, and she's someone I look up to a lot. I'm actually seeing her again today, and she told me that as an entrepreneur, like you're young entrepreneurs, you're always told to like focus or do only one thing. But she's like, that's not where you thrive. And that's not where I thrived as well. Like when people say to folks, like you thrive when you do a lot of things, and like that's a skill within itself. Like your mind, even if you say, okay, this is your one job, this is what you do, your mind will naturally like, oh my God, wait, this is kind of interesting. Like I want to pursue this, or like, wait, let's look at this a little bit. And like, that's where your mind goes. Dig into that, like lean into that. Don't try to be this person where most people are, where they can only focus on one thing and that thing. Like love and appreciate the fact that you can be a polyventurous, as Diana would say, and have energy for so many different things. And like, that's okay within itself. Like even, oh my God, Jack Dorsey, who was Twitter and Square CEO. And like, not to say that we all have to be that. He also just stepped down, but that's another thing. But like some people, and there's like, just like, there's like, I think it's like 1 out of 150 people can somehow survive on like 4 or 5 hours of sleep, like, and like be okay, like medically be okay. That's like a thing apparently. Anyways, I think there's some parts of entrepreneurs and people in general who actually do their best work when they're focusing on many different things rather than like one thing. Because I think you fill the time you have. Like I remember in different chapters or weeks and times in my life where I feel like I was only focusing on one thing. I didn't feel like super productive. I didn't feel like I was doing like objectively better in school or better in that. I just felt like I was like had more time to do. Like I even see that my friends here, like my friends here, like not in like a bad way at all, but like they're really like main and only thing right now is like just like going to school, not like just going to school, but like they don't really like participate so much in clubs or like have sports or like outside engagements or internships. And like they don't feel themselves that they're doing a lot more like they used to do more in high school. They just feel that they're still going to expend the same amount of energy and focus. But they think that they know themselves they were more productive when they had a lot of more things going on, even within their own school, which I thought was interesting. So yeah, that's the advice I would have. So when people say like, oh, you need to just do one thing, no, you can do little things. You can do a few things, not of course overwhelm yourself with like too many things on your plate, but like if you're someone who likes to have a different interest and have different projects going on, like it's not a bad thing. I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
I love that. And as you should. I'm in awe. This episode was just like me really just like digesting your character growth and like appreciating it. And thank you for telling all your stories. Thank you for opening up on Count Her In. We're super excited to have you back maybe next week. Because we host this podcast. So you will definitely be hearing us next week. But to wrap us up, give us a like, a rating on Apple Podcasts. Definitely
always
subscribe on Spotify and check us out on Instagram or on LinkedIn at the Entrepreneur ers Network. And we'll see you guys very, very soon.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.